How's it going, guys? This is Mark with @Tech. In this video, we're going to check out the Canon 18-80 compact servo cinema lens. So first of all, studio looks a little bit different. We're using a different camera. In fact, our camera is actually right here. And I got this lens because we're making a documentary right now. It's an electric vehicle documentary. But anyway, we're using this lens right here as our main shooter on the red here. This is actually a pretty cool lens. It's an all-in-one, which is ones I do love. You have 18-80, which is wide angle to nearly telephoto. The focal length is a great all-around option, but is this specific lens good? Let's take a look at what this has to offer. So right now we have the Canon mount on this version. You can also get it in a PL, I believe. This also has the additional side grip right here, which is very helpful if you're using an EOS cinema camera, but if you're not, it only works for really zoom, but it's actually worth it, and I'll tell you why. So the zoom wheel on here, you can switch over to manual or servo. You can rotate it on your own, but it's a little bit unsmooth. So if you want a smooth zoom while you're recording, you will need the side grip. If you don't care about that, that's fine. The lens comes with the built-in servo gears without this grip as it is. And there's buttons on the side if you want to also zoom that way, but I really recommend this grip on the side. You can change the speed at which you zoom, which is great. If you're using a Canon cinema camera, you can use your one-shot autofocus. There's also start, stop, record. So those things will work on there if you're using that. A pretty cool thing with this is it was specifically with our red, and even on our Sony, which I'm shooting right now, the servo actually gets power from the lens mount. So you don't need any external power. You don't need to do anything else. You just plug in the cable that goes on the side grip into the remote port on the lens, and that's it. It's powered. There's also a 12-volt DC port if you want to power it that way as well. If you don't want to take battery power from the camera, it also works that way too. If you're throwing this thing on something like a gimbal or a robot, this does have a fizz system. It has gears for your focus, your iris, and your zoom, so it will work great for that. Speaking of focus, our focus throw is very short, unlike pretty much all other cinema lenses. It's about a quarter rotation of the barrel. So if I start at the top and we go, and there you go, that's the end. So about a quarter to a third of the entire barrel that you get rotation out of. Not great. Also, this lens has a maximum focusing distance of 10 feet. It's about a foot or so close, but it's 10 feet. Is as far as it can go. Not that great considering all of Canon's primes can do 30 feet. Specifically because this is an 80mm lens, unless you're planning on getting up close to something, you can't really zoom in and get focus on something far away. This is really meant for documentary style shoots where you want to get really close for those intimate moments, and you can get wide for all those other ones. This is actually a pretty wide angle lens. 18mm is fairly wide. And not only is it a short focal distance, but it's also a wide field of view. Unlike some other lenses, this one I'm at 16mm and it's a very wide field of view. This one's right up there with that field of view. The lens is actually pretty small compared to Canon's more expensive servo lenses. Again, this is the COMPACT-SERVO line. And you can really strip this down if you want to. You can take off the side grip, which is using a standard RE rosette, so you can put it on a side handle if you want, if you don't want to have it directly on the side of the lens. We can unscrew this right here, and we can take off our lens hood, which will dramatically shorten the length. And you're working with a pretty small package here. This lens is very digital, so it has a lot of buttons and levers on the side. We got our auto iris. You can turn that on and off. We've also got manual and autofocus, which works best with, of course, Canon's cameras. We can enable and disable the stabilizer, and we can choose one of 3 stages of stabilization. We have normal stabilization, we have extreme stabilization for handheld, and we have tripod stabilization so that when you're panning, it will actually follow the motion. It won't take a second for the motion to actually catch up. Pretty nice, something you can't do on some other lenses that have stabilization built in. Given that this is a cinema lens, it is very sharp. I was pretty impressed with the results. Back focus when I got this was off, and it's harder to change because of the fact that it's a compact package. Using Canon's bigger zoom lenses, you can just easily change it with a flange right here, where on this one you have to open up the FB port and then to a couple of screws. It's a couple more steps, not as easy and quick to change on the spot, but something you should consider looking at before you go on set. So I haven't talked about pricing yet. It's actually a little different than some other lenses, and this is definitely the budget consumer version of a cinema zoom. This is $4,600 on B&H right now. The side handle is an additional $500 or so, so you're looking at nearly $5,000 for the kit. However, there's also a deal on B&H where you get the side handle for free. So $4,600 for the kit all in. This is about the price of just one single prime lens from Canon. So you can take it either way. This is either a really great deal that packs 3 or maybe even 4 lenses into one, or obviously the price does tell you that this is not nearly as good as those primes. Either way, if you're looking at getting a servo lens on a budget, it's actually a pretty nice deal. It looks great. My biggest issue is, of course, the short focus throw on here. Not very cinematic if you only travel a third of the barrel. And also when you get to further distances, there's just tiny little adjustments that make the difference between 5 feet and 10 feet. And it's a little hard to get your focus exactly right. So you want to make sure that your back focus is extremely precise and that you also have a monitor with focus peaking. That has been my biggest help, is focus peaking, because this lens isn't great when it comes to markings. But other than that, it's a lightweight, compact Cine servo lens, which packs a very usable focal distance. 18 millimeters is great for wide angle, and in interviews, 80 millimeters is more than enough. This is definitely meant for ENG documentary work. And if you're using it on something like a C100 or maybe a smaller cinema camera, this is a great option. But there are bigger, more expensive ones that are the bigger brother of this one if you're looking for something much, much more expensive and high-end. But for those of you that are starting out, this is a budget lens that is not really budget at all, but it's still pretty great. So there you go, our review on the Canon 18-80 compact servo. It's pretty good. Pricing is very reasonable. I'll leave links down below if you want to learn more. Thank you so much for watching as always. This is Mark with @Tech, and I will see you in the next one.